everyone. This is Amy. I'm here with Aim to Plan and back with another video, live streaming another video in my planner therapy series. And so today we are going to be focusing on a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which are the character strengths. So before all that, let's go ahead and play the intro and then we'll jump right into it. Okay, guys, so we are going to talk about character strengths today, and I'm really excited about covering this topic. I feel like the past couple of videos have been fairly heavy. We've been talking about like grief, dealing with crisis. And so today I wanted to do a video that was a topic that's really important to me, something that I like to talk about with my students, my clients, and also just something that I like to personally use in order to deal with or like at least work through some of the mental health issues that I might have. So we're going to jump right into it. What we're going to do is I'm going to run through a history of the character strengths, talk about a description of what the character strengths are, and then we're going to do a couple of activities together. Now, just to frame it for you, if you're interested in finding out what your character strengths are, you are going to need to take the character strengths survey, which I'll give you a link to in just a minute. So just keep in mind that you should take the character strength. I'll give you a link for it, but also if you're watching this live, you can just mute me, and when I give you the go ahead, just go ahead and mute it and take the character strength and then come back. It'll take you about 10 minutes to take the survey, and it's a good chance for you to have your results and go ahead and work through the rest of the process with me, knowing what you already have on your list of 24. And so let's start at the beginning. I think it's important to kind of start off with where the character strengths came from. So, a little bit of the history or the background of the character strengths. The character strengths were developed by Chris Peterson in conjunction with like several other people. Like, it's a list of over 40 leaders. And what he decided to do was put together or like attempt to put together a list of the things that make people good. Like, what are the things that enable a good life in people, a meaningful life in people, and how can we take those strengths and quantify them in a way that we can measure them, study them, use them, train people to use them. So it's really the impetus or like the goal of developing these character strengths was really to focus on what made people good and how can we move those people forward. And so there's some there's tons of research about the character strengths, but that's kind of the brief overview. Now, I will tell you that for the character strengths, one of the ways that they ended up kind of packaging all of the character strengths together is to create a book. It's called The Character Strengths and Virtues. And that's the book, Character Strengths and Virtues. And in that book, they uh, in the introduction basically explain it like this. The Character Strengths and Virtues manual, this book that they've written, is meant to be a counterpart to the DSM. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And so if you are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, anything like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, any of these disorders, all of those disorders are listed in the DSM. And so the Character Strengths and Virtues manual was meant to be like the opposite of that. It was meant to be the counterpart that we really in psychology shouldn't focus just on the negative things, on the mental illnesses. We should also focus on the things that are examples of mental flourishing. What are some of the things that make us better than, or like what are some of the qualities of us as humans that make us good people? And so, again, that's a very brief overview of the history of the character strengths. I do teach this as a class, and I actually just finished my semester yesterday. In this class. And so, being able to condense 16 weeks into like a 5 second or like 30-second intro into it is of course like very interesting, very I can only cover so much. Let's just say it like that. Okay, so that is the history, a very, very brief history. If you are interested in more information, leave me a comment or like, especially when the live is over, it's a lot easier for me to answer the comments with like links and things like that. And so if you leave me a comment, I will give you some references so that way you can explore some of the more information about the character traits. So let's dive into like the actual work that we're going to be doing today. So what I'm going to do now is tell you that there are 24 character strengths. When you take this survey, you can see the survey is linked right here. If you take this survey at viacharacter.org, it will ask you a series of questions, and I encourage you to answer these questions very, very honestly. Don't get too caught up into like like, is this always like me, or is this, not always like me? Just really focus on, like, generally, like, how do you feel? And just kind of answer the questions based on that. Okay. So go ahead and if you're on here live, again, you can mute me, because what I'm going to do after I finish kind of wrapping this up is to describe the 24 character strengths. Everyone will receive the 24 character strengths as a list with descriptions as well. So if you're taking it, you can just obviously reference that. But it will take about 10 minutes. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes kind of describing all of the 24 character strengths. If you're watching the replay, this is your chance to hit pause and just take it and then come back and listen to the rest of the description. Okay. So go ahead and get on that link and take your test. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is switch into talking about what the 24 character strengths are. And I'm going to do it basically in alphabetical order. It's really going to be a very brief overview of the different 24 strengths that are covered in the quiz that you're going to be taking. The quiz, it will rank these 24 into a specific order for you. And so you'll get that with the quiz results that you've received. Okay, so I'm just going to start in alphabetical order just because that makes sense to me. Okay, so the first one is appreciation of beauty and excellence. Now, in appreciation of beauty and excellence, a person who has this character strength is able to appreciate nature. And well, I guess I should say nature, but it's also nature, the like skills of other people, and the beauty in other people. And that doesn't have to be outer beauty; it can be inner beauty as well. And so it is like an emotional connection to all of the beautiful things in the world. I like to kind of describe it as like aesthetics, like. A person with an appreciation of beauty and excellence has this sense of aesthetic. They like pretty things. They like to, maybe it doesn't have to be that they own pretty things, but when they observe a pretty thing, they definitely like feel that charge, that energy, the emotion coming from that. The second character strength is bravery. Bravery, a lot of times we associate with physical bravery, like you're physically going to stand up to something, but it's also like emotional and moral bravery. Like you can choose to like confront like a really tough issue emotionally and morally, ethically, and that is a sense of bravery too. But in bravery, whether it's physical, moral, ethical, emotional, you're standing up for your convictions, whatever values you hold very strongly. You're going to stand up for those things and confront opposition to those things. All right, so that's bravery, number two. The third one is creativity. Creativity is obviously being creative, but a lot of like at a broader level, a lot of it is really focusing on being able to create out of the box thinking. So it's applying novelty to old situations, or being able to just generate ideas. So it doesn't have to be like being crafty, although that's a large part of it. It's also just using your mind to come up with solutions. All right, so creativity. Fourth one is curiosity. Curiosity is seeking out experiences that engage your mind. So it's a very Curious George kind of moment where like he's kind of getting himself into all of these situations just because he wants to explore. And so it's where you're seeking out places, people, things that can give you new information, new experiences in your life. Okay, curiosity. All right, what number am I on? That was four. Okay, so five is fairness. Fairness is where you treat everyone the same way. Okay, so you're going to treat them equally, fairly, and you're going to give everyone the same chance, and all the rules apply to everyone in your life. So I think everyone has that same idea of fairness, of like there's equity and like equitableness that exists between people, and you if you have fairness as one of your strengths, it's where you try to engage that every day with every person that you interact with. Okay. The next one is forgiveness. I've lost count of the numbers. I apologize for that. I didn't number them myself. Okay, so forgiveness. Again, that's self-explanatory, but in forgiveness, you really work to shift your interpersonal relationships by when someone else hurts you, you work on repairing that relationship by going through the internal process of forgiving them. I can talk all day about forgiveness too, so trying to keep it on the shorter side. Forgiveness is not necessarily something that has to be explicitly stated to them. You can just in your heart forgive someone, and be able to use that forgiveness to interact with them in the future. But forgiveness, at a very like, this is your 5-second lecture on this. Forgiveness is an internal emotion. It's not something you have to give to another person. Forgiveness is something you do inside yourself. And there's a lot of work that you yourself have to do. And so forgiveness doesn't actually apply to the other person, it applies to you. Okay, so forgiveness. All right. The next one is gratitude. Gratitude, again, is self explanatory. As a happy planner, of course, gratitude is a huge thing just because there are gratitude journals and guided journals related to gratitude that come out a lot. And if you're interested in gratitude and like processing, using, um, increasing your gratitude, I am definitely going to be doing a series of videos related to that in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for that. But in gratitude, again, everyone kind of has a sense of this. But gratitude is being grateful for a lot of different things in your life, like feeling blessed by just all of the events and people surrounding you, but also being able to express that gratitude. So there's an aspect of gratitude that's related to thankfulness, being able to say thank you to other people for the wonderful things that they've done for you. So both of those are built into the idea of gratitude, not just being able to search out good things or see good things, but also to be able to express good things to other people and say thank you to them. All right. Next is honesty. Okay, so honesty is twofold. Like you have to be honest to yourself. Like even if you don't have to say something out loud, you're able to be honest to yourself about where you are in life. Are you actually presenting yourself correctly? Are you being genuine about like how you're living out your values? And also being honest with other people. When someone asks you a question, are you able to be fully honest with them without omitting details, like an error or a lie of commission there, right? Or sorry, not commission of omission. But are you also able to just like push them a little bit forward, like use honesty to be able to encourage them to the next level? And so, are you taking responsibility for your own emotions and for your own behaviors in your own language? So again, it's twofold. Like, are you honest with yourself? Are you honest with other people? Okay. Again, at this point, like I'm kind of halfway through the list. I feel like we are these are very commonsensical, right? So as I go through the list, if you're just kind of tuning in halfway, I have a link on the screen where you can go and take a survey that allows you to kind of see, well, you will see the list of 24 with the kind of a similar description to what I'm giving you right now, but it will rank these character strengths for you. So you can see the order from 1 to 24 of these 24. So what's going to be your number one, what's going to be your number two. So feel free to take it as I'm talking. All right, back to the list. Okay, so we have next hope. Hope is, again, kind of what it sounds like. This is really a sense of like you are being realistic, but also you're being realistic but positive about the future. There are things in the future that you're looking forward to. You have hope, right? You don't anticipate only negative things in your life. You anticipate good things happening to you. You think that whatever you can contribute to the world, you're going to be able to turn into good things. Like your work leads to good outcomes. All right. And that's all part of hope. All right. Next is humility. Humility is, again, what it sounds like. This is where you can take a step back from yourself and your strengths and recognize that although you have these strengths, you don't have to boast about them. You show humility, you're humble about where your skills are, and you don't always seek the center. You're not always looking for attention. You're not trying to brag about what you have as qualities. You're settled and humble about like knowing what your qualities are, but not necessarily like talking about it and spreading that out. Okay. Next is humor. I'm almost done with this list, I think. I can't even tell. I don't know what number I'm on. Okay, so next is humor. Humor, again, very self-explanatory, but this is really appreciating life. There is a component, obviously, of laughter and enjoying having a sense of humor, but also it's broader than that. Like humor is really focused on like how you live your life. Are you when you approach situations, or do you approach it with a very serious mind frame, which is less humor, or do you approach it like with this playful sense of like childlikeness, right? If you're approaching it with that kind of childlike sense of wonder, then it's going to be more humor. And so it's about making people laugh. Of course, laughter is important, but also like, can you approach things less seriously? All right, next is judgment. I'm running through these very quickly, although I feel like I've been talking for quite a while. All right, so judgment. Judgment is being able to take information and to be able to weigh options and come up with a decision that has weighed all of these different perspectives equally, or like you have like weighed these options. Okay, so when you're making a decision, for example, for what to eat for dinner, you don't just come to the very first thing and say that's it, the first thing. You've considered multiple options and you've weighed them in your mind, and decided that this one is going to be the best option for me in the moment that I'm in. So that is what judgment is. It does already start to sound like some of these others, but I do want to point out that judgment is like landing at a final decision after considering multiple options. So that's kind of the underlying component of judgment that makes it different from some of these other qualities. Next is kindness. Kindness, again, is self explanatory, but this is where you give to other people. So you're helpful, you just express positive emotions to other people, you're kind to them, you're nice to them, you show compassion for them, and you do things for other people without really expecting to have something returned to you. You're not doing something just to like engage in this back and forth relationship, right? Like, example is like if you pay for someone's coffee, you don't expect someone to turn around and pay for your coffee the next day. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. You just want to give to other people. So that is kindness. Next is leadership. Again, self explanatory, but leadership is really this quality where when you're in a team situation, you enjoy stepping up into the leadership role. You like to take charge. You want to be able to guide people in the right direction, and lead them to meaningful outcomes, right? The goals that the team has in mind, you want to get them to that end goal. And so that is leadership. The next is love. Again, self explanatory, but love is something where you enjoy and you want to connect with other people. You enjoy these very close, intimate relationships. And it's not intimate in like the sense of physical intimacy, but more like emotional intimacy. You have like these strong connections, deep affection for other people. And that's how you kind of live your life, is to engage in very strong relationships. All right, that was love. The next one is learning, love of learning. And so learning is really about like being a lifelong student. You are motivated to just research things, and explore just different levels of knowledge to always try to become more of an expert in something. And like for me, as someone who has this as a quality, it's more so of like every day I just want to be able to pick up something new and learn something new, even if it's just a small fact. Perseverance. Perseverance is being able to stick through difficult times. Like there might be times where you don't necessarily get the reward or the reinforcement for engaging in certain behaviors, but there is an end goal, a long-term goal that you have in mind, and you're willing to persevere to stick through those kind of like neutral or negative moments to get to the end goal. A word that's used a lot in connection with perseverance is grit. And so there's a lot of research about grit and talking about how perseverance slash grit is one of the main motivators for success in life, right? It's one of the kind of like correlates for success. So perseverance. Next is perspective. Perspective is really being able to sit, again, like I mentioned this with judgment, but like for judgment, there's a final decision that's made. Perspective is where you're able to take in all information, and you're able to take a step back, and consider all, and usually like not just all options, but like various different options. Like there might be contradictory, like kind of like a conflict that's occurring. A person with perspective is able to hear both of those, like differing stories, and see the validity in both of them. They see them as both valid and true. And so perspective is really being able to see the big picture, and being able to hear everyone's story and understand that all stories are true at some level, at least for the person, right? So that's perspective. The next one, getting very close to the end here, is prudence. Prudence is where you are able to kind of move through life by taking careful steps. So you are prudent, you're careful in the sense of like you don't make rash decisions. You try not to be too spontaneous with things. If there's something that's coming up, you're going to settle down and like think through, and carefully consider what's going to happen and maybe the consequences, things like that, before you make a decision on whether to do it. And again, it sounds like some of these others, but really it's for prudence, it's a lot about like cautiousness, avoiding risks, just making sure that you make a decision that moves you forward, not just something that's just spontaneous. Okay. All right. Next is self-regulation. Self-regulation is being able to manage yourself. Okay, so self-regulation is being able to control and manage, well, recognize, control, manage your own emotions. So if you're stressed out in a moment, someone with self-regulation will be able to say, okay, I'm stressed out right now. What can I do to decompress? And so being able to manage those types of things, that is self-regulation. The next one is going to be social intelligence. Now, social intelligence and self-regulation kind of are like cousins. Okay, so self regulation is managing your own emotions, social intelligence is being able to see, understand, acknowledge other people's emotions. And so this is where you're able to read a room, if that makes sense, and be able to um, understand the social, like socially, what's happening in a room and be able to say, okay, well, there's some tension in the room, or there's some stress in the room, or, everyone in the room feels really happy. All right. So that is social intelligence. Next is spirituality. There's only three more. Okay. So spirituality, that is, of course, like there's a component of religion in there. So spirituality, but also spirituality really speaks to like there is a higher purpose. There is a sense of purpose that you've been called to. There's meaning in your life. There is some end goal that maybe you're not even aware of, but that there's someone, something, nature, leading you there. Now, a lot of people do attach religion to this, so it could be that it comes from God and God is leading you there. God is calling you for a certain purpose. But some people aren't religious and they're just more spiritual in nature, and they just feel like there's a call to move forward somehow. So spirituality really speaks to like you're a small component in a very large picture. Okay, so that's spirituality. Second to last is teamwork. Again, teamwork is self explanatory. This is where you're a person, when you're in a group dynamic, you're in a group, you contribute meaningfully to the team, right? You are focused on making sure that the team as a whole moves forward. You don't have to be the leader, but you're certainly going to be a contributing member. You're not going to be one of those people who sits back and just lets the team kind of move forward without you. You're going to be right in the thick of things, getting things done. Right. And then very last one is zest. Zest is a person who kind of uses energy to move forward in life. It's a person who is always like full of passion, full of vitality, full of energy. They approach everything that they do with enthusiasm. They choose things that make them excited. So that's zest. Okay, now I'm gonna take a quick pause just because phew, that was a lot of information. And hopefully by this time you have taken the quiz. If you haven't, just let me know and I will, give you like 2 more seconds. Really, there's no time. I'm thinking like looking at the time, there's not that much time. Again, I like to keep these videos under 30 minutes. And so those are the 24. Now I've ran through the list, and the thing that you will see when you get the character strength survey results back is that you will have all 24. When you see all 24 of the character strengths, they will be ranked for you. So it'll be ranked 1 through 24. Your number 1 is going to be the very top strength for you, and the number 24 is going to be the very low strength, like a very low strength or the weakest strength for you. What I will do now is kind of talk to you about like how you can kind of separate what are some of your strongest strengths and what are like kind of falling down the list. All right. And so what we're going to talk about now is well, what we call in the field signature strengths. Okay, now signature strengths are the character strengths, and these character strengths are the list of 24. But in that list of 24, there is a list that's a little bit smaller, and this list of the smaller strengths are what we call the signature strengths. And there are three components to signature strengths that exist. Okay, and the way that I like to get people to do this is when you take the quiz, just start at number 1. If you can answer this question for the very first signature, for the very first strength, then that would be classified as a signature strength. Then you would move to number 2 and answer these questions for whether this applies to number 2, and just move down the list. At some point, you'll start answering no, like these questions don't apply to like maybe number 6, number 7, number 8. Okay, so just start at number 1 and work your way down the list. The end goal is to arrive somewhere between 3 and 7 signature strengths. Okay, so just again, start at 1 and just kind of work your way down. So answer these 3 questions about question or your strength number 1. First question here is this strength essential to me? If I try to like describe my personality. Is this strength something that I would list? Now, for me, my top strength is creativity. So when I answer that question, is creativity essential to me? The answer is definitely yes. If I removed creativity from my personality, I wouldn't be who I am. Like creativity is essential to me. Okay, so that's essential. The second question you ask yourself is effortlessness. When I use creativity as an example, or when I use this strength, fill in the blank there, is the energy that I use, or like is it effortless for me to apply that strength? Okay, again, for me, my top strength is creativity. When I use creativity, is that effortless? And the answer for me is yes. Every time I'm creative, I feel like it's so easy for me to do that. There's no effort that's involved in me being creative. And then the third question is this strength, number one strength, number two strength, number three strength, is it energizing? When I use this strength, do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel better than when I did before I used it? Okay, so again, for me, top strength is creativity. When I use creativity, do I feel energized afterward? The answer is yes. I love being creative. When I'm able to sit down and actually be creative, it always makes me feel better at the end of it. Okay, and now I did that for my very first strength and answered the question of whether it's essential, whether it's effortless, whether it's energizing. And you work your way down the list. Again, at some point, you'll run into some of the strengths where you're not able to answer yes to all three of those questions for a single strength. Okay, so it could be number five, it could be number six, it could be number seven. At some point, you're going to land on a list of maybe like three, four, five, six, or seven that are like, I answered yes to all three of these questions for those strengths. You can stop there because that's your list of signature strengths. For me, my list is four. I can't remember the actual list, but I know creativity is number one. I definitely answered yes to all these questions. And as I go through the list, the next four, the next three are the ones where I'm like, yes, these are definitely part of me. They're essential, they're effortless, they're energizing. But then when I get to number five, it's like, oh, no, that this strength takes me a little work. Like I do like to use it, but I don't necessarily feel energized by using it. So I answered no. And so I cut myself off at that point. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is very quickly show you how you can use this in your planner. Okay, it's going to be so much fun. This is very simple. What I ended up doing was pulling this, like the year, the perpetual calendar, and what you're going to do, what I encourage you to do, is at the very top of this. Again, I'm using my Sharpie just because it shows up better. Is I'm going to write my signature strengths up here. Again, I only remembered creativity, so I'm going to write creativity. But I will go back and add all of them just kind of across the top here. And I'm calling this kind of like my log or my journal. And so I'll write like them across the top here just so I can have that reminder of what my signature strengths are. But I'll write it here. And then what I'm going to do is every day try to activate these signature strengths, whatever your number is. Now, for me, I could probably do creativity every day. But sometimes, you just run into like you can't pull out all your craft supplies or whatever it is, right? So my next strength, I know one of my strengths is learning. Another of my strengths is appreciation of beauty. Could it be where I have a 30-second moment where I just sit still and activated that skill? So this log right here is your chance to write out all of the things that you have done to tap into your signature strengths for a day. The way that I encourage you to use this is to basically list one thing from one of these five or four or however many strengths you have. So today, for me, if I'm starting it just at the very beginning, I'm going to write right here, planner therapy. Right. One of the things that you'll notice when I do these videos is that I don't have notes. I really am free forming it. To me, that's like that's what I do because of creativity. Like I don't want to be trapped into like reading off my notes. I really am just kind of like shooting from the hip, which, is kind of fun. It's creative, but also, it gets me in trouble sometimes. So, but that is creativity. And I'm just going to run through the list. Now, obviously, these are dated. So you can certainly like use it as intended by like matching it up with the date. But for me, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go through and white out these 31s, and I'm going to use it to where there's 30 columns, or like not 30 columns, 30 rows in each column. And so that will be 180. This is 180 instances of creativity or of using my signature strengths. And I'm not going to worry so much about the date. I'm just going to, like, if I missed one, I'll just use the very next line and not worry so much about the date. The other thing that you might want to consider is if you have multiple of these, you can do one for each one of your signature strengths. So this one is creativity. This side could be very simply like my next signature strength, and you could just use multiple sheets. And then you would have 90 instances where you've engaged in creativity. Now, why does this matter? This basically is a chance for you to, especially if you're here wondering why planner therapy or how therapy, mental health kind of connects to your planner. One of the things that we have missing from our lives a lot of time is this like focus on the positive things in our life, and we really don't think about or use our strengths regularly. We tend to get focused on kind of the minutia of life. And so this is a chance to kind of go back and reflect on the things that make you you. You might be surprised how certain things like before I took this test, I always kind of knew that I liked to be creative, but I didn't know it was the one thing that kind of drove me. And nowadays, because I know this, I'm able to like adapt my work, adapt how I like record YouTube videos even, but to do things that are more creative, even if it's like a very everyday creative thing. I'm not like pulling out all my craft supplies, but I can sit and think, oh, what's a good topic to talk about today? And how can I like put my own spin on it and make it like creative in my own way, right? So don't think of it as like you have to spend 3 hours doing these things, but certainly you can use them daily in a way that can affect your mental health. Positive psychology, the field where a lot of this character strength stuff comes from, really emphasizes the fact that, in order to be healthy mentally, we have to be able to focus on the positive as much as we focus on the negative. And so that's the whole reason I did this video. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like because I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, whatever you have going on related to how this topic went for you, if you enjoyed taking the quiz, what you learned from it, or if you have information that you want to get from it. And so I am wrapping up at this point. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, thumbs up. And if you have any ideas for future videos, please do let me know that as well. And until the next video, bye guys.